So welcome to our very first YouTube video, and this is Shivam from the Bookledge, and you know me from Instagram. And so today we shall be discussing about one of my favorite personal finance book, The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel. I read this book in 2020, recommended by one of my bookstore friends, and I absolutely loved it. And I would love to share all the insights from it with you. The book starts with the story of Ronald Reid. He fixed car at gas stations for 25 years and swept floors for 17 years. He lived in a 2-bedroom room for his entire life and died at the age of 92 in 2014. Well, sounds like a really middle class guy, right? But you will be shocked to know that when he died, he had a net worth of $8 million. So were his neighbors, friends, and everyone who knew him. They thought, a guy who did only low-paying jobs, how did he become rich? Well, to tell the truth, there was no secret to him becoming rich. He didn't win any lottery or didn't had any second business. He saved as little much as he can and put them into stocks. And then he waited for that money to compound over time. And when he died, he had about $8 million. That's just pure and simple investing and saving. But a few months before Ronald Reid died, there was a man called Richard in the news. Richard was an MBA and had a really great finance career. He retired by the age of 30 and he owned many buildings and assets. But in 2008, when the financial crisis hit, he lost everything, all of his assets, and went downhill. Well, why did it happen? Well, that boils down to because of bad financial decisions that he took. So, becoming financially successful is no rocket science. It's just a soft skill which the author calls the psychology of money. So today I shall be sharing with you the 5 top lessons that I learned from this book. Lesson number 1. No one's crazy. You have seen people spend so much money lavishly on cars and everything, and you have thought, how fool are they? Why aren't they investing and doing stuff like that? Well, because no one's crazy. When I started reading about personal finance and investing, I talked about it with a lot of my friends, and some of them said that their parents lost a huge amount of money in stock market, so they don't think it's a good investment and anyone should invest in it. And to say the truth, I was also really pretty scared. But after going deeper into the world of finance and investing, I learned why people are afraid to invest. Well, the answer is because everyone has their own unique experience on how the world works, on how money works. So all of us go through life anchored to a set of views that how money works and how we should be using it, which has been pre-instilled in us from our childhood or from the beginning of our life. And that's why some kind of financial decisions might make sense to you, but not to others. And the vice versa can happen. A person who grew up in poverty thinks about risk and reward in different ways than a person who grew up in a really wealthy family. A person who has been told that buying their house is the biggest thing that they can do and they can only get rich by doing a great job, then they will never understand the power of investing and all of that stuff. So don't judge people because of the financial distance, because the truth is we humans aren't logical, we are psychological. We have some preconceived notions from when we were a child and keep on believing it till our adulthood or sometimes maybe our whole lives. Lesson number 2. Start investing early. A lot of great books have been written about the greatest investor of all time, Warren Buffett. But not most of us discuss is Warren Buffett's greatest secret. The truth is that Warren Buffett is a great investor, and that's true, but his secret weapon was time. Warren Buffett started investing when he was a kid, literally a kid. If Warren Buffett started investing in his 30s and stopped in his 60s, then most of the people would have never heard of him. But he has been investing for over 3 decades now, and that's how his income has compounded over time. And he has become the greatest investor of all times. Here's an interesting story that Morgan Housel shares in this book. He says that Warren Buffett's income has compounded at 22% per year. But Jim Simon, the head of the hedge fund Reliance Tech, has compounded his income at 61% yearly since 1988. But still no one has heard of him till now. and I still hadn't heard of him. I read about him in the book only. So remember, if you're in your 20s, it's the best time to invest. And to say the truth, the best time to invest is when you pass the legal age of investing. That is after you become 18 years old. The amount doesn't matter because when you buy and hold it for a long time, the amount will grow exponentially through compounding, whose power you can't even fathom. And here's a quick tip. I watched a video of Ankur Warikoo. He is an entrepreneur and an investor, and he talks in one of his videos that even if one invests only 2000 rupees in stock market per month for his entire life, then even then he would go around to earn millions, even if we subtract the rate of inflation. And I would highly recommend you watch that video. And for anyone wondering how much is 2000 rupees in dollars, it's about $30. For safety, take about $50. You can obviously invest $50 or 2000 rupees in stock market every month, no matter where you are and who you are. Lesson number 3. True wealth is what you don't see. At one side, we see a kid driving a fancy car and with all of his brothers driving some fancy cars and the parents too. But the other side that we don't see is they have a loan, a debt that they have taken on the car, a debt they have taken on the house that they own, and the tension and the amount of work the father does to repay that debt. That's the thing that we don't see. We always see in terms of the flashy things that our eyes see, and we don't dive deeper to see the full picture of what is really happening. And this forces us to think that maybe someday I'll have that kind of car, and also I'll be considered as fancy and super cool and all of that stuff. And a classic example of this is Daniel Mack. Well, I'm not pinpointing him out, but I have heard and seen some of his TikTok videos where he goes to people who are driving supercars or really fancy cars and asks them, what do you do for a living? Well, I don't think that should be the right question. I think that they should ask them, do you have any kind of assets? That should be the right kind of question to ask people who have fancy cars. Because if they don't, then I don't think that they are considered as rich. And there's also the person driving the car fallacy. I mean, whenever you see a person passing through the car or Lamborghini or any kind of car that you really admire, whom do you admire? The person or the car? You admire the car. You think that maybe someday I'll have this Lamborghini or this Ferrari. You never even lay eyes on the person and think that oh my god, I admire this person, I want to be like him. That just doesn't happen. People admire your car, they don't admire you. So stop buying that shit. So now when you see someone driving a car, think this way. If he is driving a $100,000 car, then he might be wealthy. But the only data point that you have is that they have spent $100,000 from what they had, and now they have $100,000 less in their bank account, or maybe they are $100,000 in debt. And to tell the truth, that's the only thing we know about them. So Morgan Housel says a really wise quote: wealth is all of the assets that haven't been converted into the things that you see. Lesson number 4. You pay a price for everything. Suppose you want to buy a car of $30,000 and you have 3 options. 1. Pay $30,000. 2. Find a cheaper car. 3. Steal a car. Now, 90% of the people won't choose the option of stealing the car because they can clearly see that now they will get the car but will have to face its consequences in the future. So we can see the benefits of stealing this car is less than the consequences we might face in the future. But still, there will be some people that will steal cars. And just like this, if you want to get wealthy and become rich, then you have 2 options. Number 1, invest in a stock and hold it for a long term. But to invest for long term, you have to pay the price. And the price isn't in dollars. The price is in uncertainty, fear, doubts, but in return, you have a bright future. Or option 2, keep your money somewhere safe and don't let it compound. Here, your money would be safe, but you won't get high returns. Just like bank FDs, you will get safety there, but the price that you have to pay is in dollars. The amount that you could have had if you had invested it in a stock. That is known as the opportunity cost that you have lost by investing somewhere safe. And the harsh truth is that most people choose the second option because they think it is safe and investing isn't worth the risk. And Morgan Housel compares this option to stealing the car. And the reasoning behind is this. He says that most people can spend hundreds and even thousands of dollars on buying expensive items, home decorations, and everything else. But they don't invest in themselves or stocks because they don't see the potential outcome of themselves or the stocks they are going to invest in. And Morgan Housel quotes a really interesting thing here. He says that growth is driven by compounding, which occurs very slow, but destruction happens suddenly. Lesson number 5. Staying wealthy versus getting wealthy. There are 1,000 ways to get rich, but there is only one way to become poor, and that is not to manage your finances wisely. And that's why the author says staying wealthy is harder than becoming wealthy. Because when one doesn't have money, then he doesn't need to exercise self-control in himself. But when one starts earning money, he needs to exercise self-control and learn about financial restraints and how to manage his finances wisely. And that's why he says to become rich and to stay rich, one need to have two different kind of mindset. But if one becomes rich by investing a little amount of money every month or for a long period of time, then they gain the two kind of mindsets. So he says to stay wealthy, one need to have a survival mindset, and for which you need these three things. Number 1, become financially unbreakable. It means to train your mind to not be affected by the market cycle. Because when you invest in stocks or real estate, you will know that there are large amount of price fluctuations happening every day or every month or weekly. When you find something really cheap, you obviously buy it. And author says to apply this kind of mindset to when you buy stocks and real estate. When things are available for cheaper, you should buy. But when things are high priced, then you should be paranoid about buying or selling. So he says to develop the skill to not be affected by the market cycle and use it to your own benefit. 2. Have a plan when things don't go according to plan. What happens when your well-prepped plan doesn't go as you planned it to go? Well, at the time you need plan B. And that's why in the world of investing, people keep a portfolio of 10 to 15 companies that they want to invest in. And also keep an emergency fund at bay in case of any kind of emergency or market breakdown. 3. Be optimistic for the future and paranoid about your present success. Author says that you should always be optimistic and positive about the future and not to think like what most people think. Like they think like, well, you will die in the future, why are you saving money, why are you investing it, let's just use it, let's just enjoy our time. Author says to avoid that. Start being optimistic about the future, not pessimistic about it. But he also warns us about our present success. If you have any kind of success in the present, start being paranoid about it. Because as you saw from the example of Richard and Ronald Reid, that how Ronald Reid was optimistic about the future earned millions, and Richard, who spent all of his money, led to his own downs. So this was it. This was the 5 lessons that I learned from the psychology of money, and I think it would be really beneficial to you. So if you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video with your friends and relatives, and see you in the next video.